All right, welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show. My man Anthony Schlegel here with me, and goodness gracious, big weekend in college football. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of movement, always a lot of things crazy happening. Ohio State downs Nebraska 21-17, Schlegs. Among other things happened, really no crazy upsets in the world of college football, but I don't think that game, it didn't feel necessarily all that good for everybody. And as you watched it, we'll top line this thing and try to get some of your takeaways. I know we got a bunch of questions fired away here that we'll get to as well on some of our tailgate talk. We have Cardale Jones join us here on this Monday, see what his thoughts are about the game. His 2014 team was recognized in between, I believe, the first and second quarter. I'll open up with this before I get your thoughts. Kind of an eerie feeling in the game. It was a noon start, beautiful day. One of the great days you're going to find in Columbus, Ohio. So the day was tremendous. But I don't know. It just didn't seem like there was a lot of juice in the stadium. Now, I don't know if that was maybe some of it was player driven. Maybe some of it was, fan driven from the expectations. I'm not sure. But it didn't necessarily feel like a very excited crowd. Like there wasn't a lot of energy. There was kind of like a nervous energy. People were a little tepid, sitting there on the edge of their seats. And I think they didn't necessarily know what to do. When you move around a lot, Shall, you shake your camera. So try not to.
I know. It's okay. You sit on the edge of your seat, and I was just trying to mimic the edge of my seat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you don't have to headbutt your camera, though, like a meatball. But
well, it wasn't. It's on a plyo box.
Okay. Well, exactly. That's all that needs to be said. But there was like this nervous energy. There was even some booing that came out. I'll never tell fans not to boo. That's part of it. Okay, I get it. Ultimately what happened. But there was just this nervous energy, and it really didn't have like that juice, that positivity. And so it wasn't until Ryan had a brain aneurysm after the Arvell Reese targeting and people started throwing water bottles on the field that it felt like on third down, people got engaged, like people were fired up and ready to go. And so once that happened, then like the end of the game felt better. And you saw obviously the defense get, Ohio State went down and scored, defense gets an interception, you kneel the ball out, like things start going good towards the end of the game. But it was just in the stadium gets like that from time to time, Schlegs. And I think it's a product of all of this success. People are waiting like on the edge of their seat for every play to be a 50-yard touchdown run or a 70-yard pass play. And if you're not having that, and Ohio State went 3 and out a number of times. They were 1 for 10 on third down. And we'll get into all the different numbers and everything else. But now that uneasy energy is something that I've felt before. And usually it's been in the Michigan game the last couple of years because of kind of what's happened there. And 2022 had a very nervous energy feel to it. We'll see ultimately how it goes this year. But it was kind of unique, kind of different. I don't know if it was the noon start or what all went into it.
Yeah, well, I would just say this. As far as like the crowd, win your freedom. I think I heard you say that. Oh my gosh, man, what's the Sam Dickens? Look at this phone guy. Look at this guy. Sorry, I didn't turn my ringer off. Busy day for Schlegs here.
Amateur hour, Schlegs?
Huh?
Is amateur hour?
No, it's not amateur hour. It's just called life. And it's called busy stuff. Now, I'll say this about the game. You have to do something to set it apart. And it all started to me, Bob, when you have Nebraska. They fumble the kickoff. You get the ball on a short field. You don't punch it in. That's kind of how it started, right? You automatically, boom, can flip the script right there, go up 7-0. They're reeling. They get a stop. They get the ball back, actually in better field position because then did we miss the field goal on that one? Was that the one? No, we went for it on fourth down. I think it didn't get it.
Yeah, went for it on fourth.
Yeah, and so that being said, that right there, you automatically have an opportunity of punching it in. Then you go through the game, and it's a tale of really the first half and then like the third quarter. And we didn't make any adjustments. We didn't run the football. The first half offensively, I thought they were doing well. But still, the ability to run the football, you only had 32 yards in the entire first half. There was obviously the couple of wow plays that everybody comes to expect in Ohio State. And we had the Jeremiah Smith touchdown. You had the Carnell Tate touchdown. Those were all really positive things. But then the inability to run the football. But I would say this, even as a fan, like the defense was playing. I always like to look at good things, but they had 3 sacks, 13 tackles for loss. Those are the things that we want to see, right? Cody Simon out there playing with some juice. KJ out there playing with some juice. I think let's see who had another sack. Did Talik? No. I forget I forget who else had the other 2 sacks. But anyways, there were some really positive things. Then coming out in the second half, I think the crowd, I mean, me personally, I wanted to see some adjustments and to really start hammering the football, and we didn't do that. So I think it's kind of like you have this expectation that we're going to be, make the adjustments because we've done that in the past, and then we just didn't see it. Nebraska made some really good adjustments, but we did not, and we were ineffective. Then Nebraska takes the lead, and I would say this, right, playing from start to finish, Will Howard, I thought had a really good game. I think it was like, what was he, 16 and 19, something like that, 13 and 16 for 221 yards, 3 touchdowns, hit Quinshaw on the other one. But the ability to respond after Nebraska came and scored and go 75 yards for a touchdown to ultimately win the game, I thought that was was a positive. So, and I think too, it's also this, Bob, from what transpired last week at Indiana for Nebraska to then coming on the road to Ohio State, and everybody's been like pumped up about the roster and the talent, and we're just waiting and we're just waiting and we're just waiting. That's kind of what happens. But to me, as a fan, I'm still engaged in the game. I'm still cheering on the Buckeyes. I still want to see plays being made. Like, I'm always in it. Like, we all have a role to play. Play your role. Like, cheer, third down, ringing the bell. Like, let's get up, let's get loud. Like, that's an advantage for us.
Well, yeah, all the world's a stage, Flags, and all the men and women, well, they're merely players. The sacks came from JT, Ty Hamilton.
Yeah, JT, Ty Hamilton. I was thinking Ty.
So they got pressure. And so that's one of the other things. Would you say there was 14 TFLs?
13 TFLs, man. Matter of fact, in one series, like Cody, I felt like he had like 2. He made like 3 tackles in a row there in the fourth quarter. That was paramount. KJ had a great play on a screen to his side. And he dropped, but they were bringing pressure. They were sewing 6-man fronts. They weren't bringing them just up the middle. They were bringing them from different places, which I thought was good. But he had a nice TFL. Caleb Downs, like coming into the backfield, playing the run hard, right? So, I mean, there was a lot of good things defensively. They still rushed for 121 yards. Like, that's not to the standard that they want. But we also got, 13 TFLs in this game. So everybody was talking about pressure. Let's bring pressure. You're going to give up a couple of plays, man, when you're doing that. But ultimately, like, they held them to field goals. They didn't allow them to score except for that one that they punched it in, I think, from the 4.
Yeah.
So defensively, like, are there some things they need to clean up? Yeah. Do I think the defense played faster from the week ago? Yeah. Is the offense less, like, compared to that of Oregon? The answer is yes. Like, we kind of expect that on this day, but I got exactly what I wanted to see from the defense about flying around, playing fast, and getting TFLs and sacks.
It's interesting. Like you talked about the pressure. Everybody wanted to see pressure. Well, with that, there's always some downsides to what pressure can ultimately look like. Dylan Raiola sliding out of the pocket, having the 30-plus yard quarterback scramble, had another one. So, like, if you don't have all the rush lanes filled up, it can also be an issue. So pressure is not always, fix-all, if you will. It doesn't just protect everything. Like, there's still going to be issues that you'll potentially have with it. So that's part of it. They did make a lot of plays. I thought the defense, like you said, Schlegs, they played well. Here's one of the other things. Like, Lathan Ransom was out. Thought they were kind of coming into the season. Safety depth was a concern. We saw them go in there. I thought McLean played well. I thought Lorenzo Styles played well. And I thought Jermaine Matthews did a really good job. Now, I don't necessarily love Jermaine, like, off the ball. The thing is, the way they play their safety strikes, I don't know if you've seen it, like the adjuster and the nickel, like they spin it a lot. And so sometimes you'll get in the deep third. Like, I like Jermaine as a corner. And not that he can't play safety, and he's done some good job with that, but the way he plays and, like, the mentality and just his body type, I love him inside the nickel. I'll play him wide, but I want him playing man-to-man. I want him on dudes, ready to go, being physical, like all of those things, taking care of business. So, like, that's what I want out of Jermaine. Now, but he played back there, and so he was the guy that we hadn't seen on the field, and there was some clamoring, like, can we get him out here? Can he be that guy? So I thought all of the guys that were coming in, and they're rotating a lot. I thought Tim did a good job of rotating. The back end I thought played well. And now, was Nebraska Schlegel, are they as good as Oregon? No, they're not Oregon on the perimeter. They don't have these 5-star super fast receivers. And so Denzel got targeted a little bit early on, but they didn't really throw it a ton, at least not towards him. They did throw it on the perimeter and tight. And one of the things that I'll always love to give credit where credit's due, I'll criticize a guy. Denzel didn't play well against Oregon. That was obvious. 2 weeks, he's a confident guy. He didn't have a chance to play a lot of balls down the field, but did you see how good of a tackler he was? Like, they tried to run a lot of stuff, get outside, probably challenge him physically to see if he'd be able to hold up. He did a phenomenal job, I thought, taking care of their short pass game and stopping the screens. Go ahead.
No, here's the other thing too. When you don't run the football and you're 1 for 10 on 3rd down, Nebraska had the ball for 35 minutes to 25 minutes of Ohio State, guys. I mean, we talk about it all the time. Complimentary football. We talk about it all the time. Making it special teams. Like, you want to talk about a concern from this game? Special teams, punting and kicking the football, like kicking field goals. Like, that's another one, right? So there's other issues, like in this game in particular, right? Defense wasn't one of them because those numbers get less. They're out there playing 10 more minutes of football than the offense. Offense has to do a better job on 3rd down. And how do you do that? By winning 1st and 2nd. And how do you do that? By being able to run the football.
Yeah, not a whole lot of opportunities there, Schlegs, as you touched on it. 31 rushes, 16 passes, not a lot of plays to go around, and 3 of those were kneel downs. So you just didn't have the volume of plays that you typically would ultimately see out there. 285 total yards. So not a great offensive performance. Defensively, I thought they played well and did some really good things, but still some more work to do with that. But coming up, we're going to have our guy Cardale Jones. His team was honored, 2014 team, national championship squad. So he'll be up next. But first, I'm going to tell you about this from Export. Mouth guards, brain, teeth, health. Listen, protect what matters most. Trusted by professional athletes, designed by NHL team dentists. Export mouth guards are scientifically tested to help you absorb those high-impact hits, protecting both your grill and your brain. Export mouth guards, they've got 3 layers of advanced protection. The patented carbon fiber, it makes the difference. It's custom fit to your grill to absorb those big hits with 3D printed technology. They're absolutely tremendous. Better performance, better production, max comfort, clear communication. So you can focus on your game, not on your gear. They're so great. Tiki Barber going to be their spokesman now, doing a great job there. Don't take chances with your safety. Exportguards.com/Bobby. Save 15% on your order. Protect what matters most. Cardale Jones up next.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the.
I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool and doesn't taste like. I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, now pleased to welcome in our guy, former Buckeye, guy Schleg's coach, the guy who won a national championship, the man they call 12 Gauge, did a heck of a job for the Buckeyes. Now you can see him on CBS doing a great job as well. Our guy, Mr. Cardale Jones, he's back a couple weeks ago. He was like cruising around from the airport trying to find him. Did a great job giving us some insight after that Oregon game. Now we'll talk to him a little bit about this Nebraska game as we effort to get him locked in and ready to go, Schlegs. Anything else, like top of mind when you think about this game?
Yeah, I'll just say this. I thought Cody played with a chip, and that's something that I've heard people talk about, but I thought Cody did. You know,
Do you
and
think there's an issue on this team with, like, I don't want to say toughness because I don't think that's the right word. Maybe more attitude or everything. We'll put a pin in that because we're welcome our guy Cardale Jones right now, kind enough to join us. Cardale, thanks for your time today, sir.
Oh, man. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me, as always.
Oh, you're looking super sweet in the ride right now.
Look at him, man. He got his hand up on the wheel.
Hey, listen, it's just up there. I'm parked, baby. I'm parked.
I know you are, but just leave it like that. You know what I mean? You should put some UGK on there in the background, just some like background music.
Wait, hold on. Wait a minute. Let me lean my seat back a little more.
Do it just a little more. Yeah, it feels good, man. Feels good.
So you saw the game, Cardale. I mean, you've been in these games. Everybody's been in them where, maybe tighter than what people think, even trailing late. Kind of just your general thoughts of the game, as you first saw it.
First, I think the defense played tremendously. I think they did a great job all around to really be in position to help the offense. Especially after the last time we saw these guys, I think it wasn't the standard of silver bullets football that they hold themselves to outside of expectations for us fans. But overall, I'm still waiting on them to put together a full game on all phases of the football, offense, defense, and special teams. And I know our offense, we look like, wasn't the offense we was used to seeing over the last couple of weeks of the season. But the great part about it, we got two of the best offensive masterminds in Ryan Day and Chip Kelly in that room, in that facility to figure it out and put it all together. And I saw you guys mention earlier a little bit about the special teams. Now, that's where I think the most improvement can come from at this point in the season. Just really having a threat of getting three when you kind of in that fringe area, and then also just making big plays. I think that's a lost aspect that we're kind of missing right now from this team.
Yeah, let's stick with the defense, Cardale. So they talked about like, hey, we're not affecting the quarterback and Dylan Gabriel, and then this week you come in and you have an interception, 13 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. You had a goal line stand in there. Tell a little bit about just the mentality of what you saw from the defense in this game to help the offense, considering the fact that they had to play 10 more minutes than the offense did.
Well, they you know what, these guys are professionals for the most part, man. These guys know they didn't have their best outing their last time that we saw them versus Oregon, and then they also, I guarantee, they heard all the things and they took those personal challenges that the coaching staff may have put on them, that the media may have put on them, that the fans may have put on them, and they answered their response. Yeah, Nebraska is nowhere near as talented or as good of a team or offense as Oregon, but they're headed in the right direction for sure. Now, I'd love to see our offense versus Oregon plus our defense versus Nebraska bring it all together in one game, but it's still a long season.
Carl, how much of it seemed that the stadium team seemed a little flat maybe to start the game. You watched Nebraska go play Indiana last week, and it was not pretty. They got beat up. The Nebraska defense has been pretty good. Indiana was all over them, running the ball, throwing the ball. They got after them on the defensive side. How much of it do you think played into the fact that they just watched this game? And coaches can say all they want, but the reality is, like, you're watching a team get beat up by Indiana, and maybe you don't necessarily have your A game to start.
I don't think that played in too much of a factor, just the fact of the team coming off a loss on top of a bye week. I think it was just, Nebraska did a great job of correcting their mistakes from the week before that led them to that shellacking up in Indiana. And then also when you think about the things that we really want to do, that you really want to do as an offense to have success overall, is run the ball. And I think the biggest question mark going into this season for this team and over the last couple of years was just the development of the big guys up front consistently, because sometimes they look great. Sometimes they look really, really good. And then so other times you can tell a guy maybe a step or two off, maybe second guessing himself, maybe thinking too much, and it causes something really bad to happen in the run game or even in the pass game when it comes to quarterback pressures. So I think Nebraska just had they got two great pass rushers for one, and it was kind of the perfect storm of us dealing with a first-time backup starter, at left tackle, and then him actually getting hurt, and then shuffling around on the offensive line. So I think it was a perfect storm for Nebraska to get after the quarterback and actually cause some major factors in the run game.
So moving forward, like, let's take this into consideration. Like, what are, besides maybe scheme of the offensive line, what are ways, I'm just thinking, hey, you got a big guy and a running quarterback in Howard. Like, is he going to have to play more of a role in this game to keep the edge guys honest? Like, as you're sitting there and all the ball that you play, like, where can they go from here to help get a little bit of that running game going moving forward?
I think you got to continue to develop the big guys in that depth up front. That's what we've seen. This offensive line started off hot through the first 5 weeks of the season, only giving up one quarterback pressure, and then Simmons go out with an injury versus Oregon a few weeks ago, and then Zen get banged up a little bit, so it's forcing you to shuffle some guys around. You're starting to see that. You're starting to see the depth issues and the experience issues. But yeah, I think having a guy like Will with the ability to run the ball is definitely going to help ease some of that. Not just in the passing game, but in the run game as well, because you get that extra defender, you get that extra block, that extra hat in the run game when you have such a great threat as Will Howard.
It's tough, Cardale, when you don't have the ball for 25 minutes. You don't necessarily have the opportunity to run a lot of plays, and they rushed it 30 times, wasn't all that effective. Will Howard, I thought, played pretty darn well. 13 to 16, looked good. Throwing the ball, he obviously had the one interception. Two nice deep shots, and I thought he looked pretty good throwing them. Should they press the ball down the field a little more?
That goes back to my point of saying that, you got to feel comfortable enough to call those plays, and that start with the big guys up front. The question is, if I'm thinking about taking shots downfield, well, can I hold up? Can I hold up front to take those shots downfield? I know I got the players to have to beat you with the speed and things like that. And it's so crazy because I'm sitting in the parking lot as I'm watching Caleb Downs pull up and get out his car. So I'm in Easton, so I'm watching him pull up in his car. But anyways, I think it goes to the fact of I got to have a comfortability in the big guys up front to drop back and do those type of things. And also what's going to help with that is having and being consistent more on the ground, but that all starts with the big guys up front.
So looking at that, what are you thinking that you have to do now over this week, getting prepared to going on the road versus Penn State from what you witnessed? And I totally agree with you. And Bob talked about this a little bit earlier about the stadium being flat and what everybody, and I think your point's valid here, Cardale. I think we're all waiting for complimentary football and a complete game from this team. So in order for them to go get a win on the road, a complete game from this team, what are the things that they should be focusing on this week going into Penn State?
Well, I mean, I think it's a few things. Penn State is a really good team this year. Also, is a tough environment, as always, to play there. I know they might be dealing with some injuries at quarterback, but we all know Penn State, no matter what, they're going to bring their defense, and they're going to have a solid front seven. So it continues to go back to my point of making sure going into that game, you got 5 to 7 guys that you can lean on up front if these injuries, if these rotations isn't working out as much. And then that just put more pressure and responsibility on your skill players, and not just that, but your defense. I think this game is going to be a defensive showdown just because of the inabilities we've seen over the last week or so of Ohio State consistently depth of the big guys up front. So I can guarantee you guys that defense is going to have a big chip on their shoulder, knowing that, they may have to some way, somehow, not just win this game, but keep these guys in this game for 4 quarters.
Absolutely. All right. Cardale has been out to Penn State. He's played there more recently than Schlegel and I have. Schlegel's coached there. We're going to take a quick break here. I want to come back with Cardale for a couple more minutes and talk to him about Happy Valley, what to expect, and another difficult road test coming up next on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, still hanging here with our guy, 12 gauge, Mr. Cardale Jones. He's had a lot of success. He's played quarterback. This offense for Ohio State didn't look great. They made the plays when they needed to. Will Howard led a game-winning drive through a nice ball on a 4th and 2 to keep the sticks moving, and they were able to get it done, but now possibly down to their 3rd left tackle. They're going out to Happy Valley. It's going to be a raucous environment. It looks like both presidential candidates are possibly going to be there. Big noon kick. It's going to be loud. It's going to be adventurous. What does it take to go into a place like that and win, Cardale? Because you've been a part of some of the most tremendous games that you've experienced over there at Beaver.
You know what? Coach Mick used to say it, and thank God he's still around that facility and still installing that culture of toughness and just being nasty. On the road, you got to pack your 2 things: your tough guy undies and your run game. In your run game, 2 things I will never forget, because one, they're not just funny, but they're true. And you look at some of the big road wins that, I've been a part of, you guys been a part of, and you got to pack your defense as well. So that's 3 things. Those are usually the formulas to go into an environment like this and give yourself a chance. Like I said before, Penn State's a really good team this year. I mean, clearly a playoff team, and it's going to be potentially, if they win this one, potentially competing for the Big Ten championship game, Big Ten championship title. So those are things that you can't leave Columbus, Ohio without. And it's going to, and I sound like a broken record at this point, and it's going to start with the big guys up front, already down to your potential 3rd left tackle. You got to find a way to manufacture some offense on the ground, and you got to find a way. I can promise you, almost guarantee you, if you don't win the time of possession battle with a team like Penn State, who can run the ball really well, who's not asking neither quarterback Drew Aller or their backup Bo Pabula to do anything spectacular in the pass game, they can control the line of scrimmage. They can control the time of possession in there, because their defense play really good defense. And if you don't win those battles, you're going to find yourself in a dogfight.
Yeah, I think he called them tough gutchies. Remember, I think it was our gutchies, right?
Tough gutchies.
Right? Like tough guy gutchies, right? And he would go
looking around like, what's gutchies? Like, what is that?
Yeah, what's a gutchie, right? Just like he calls like the ladders the rungs, right? Like old school stuff. And he'd pull up his underwear a little bit. When you said that, I just totally had a flashback. There was actually a question. I saw it on the old Twitter machine. Maybe it was on X or the IG. I don't know, because Bob asked a lot of questions. But somebody was, I think it's valid, right? Like anytime you don't perform up to the standard, or there's some questions, you have to evaluate everything. And one of them was like, from an upfront perspective, guys being strong enough, right? And basically like Coach Mick, and has he been there too long? You've been around, won the program, but also, and I don't want people like, I don't want to answer it because you're like, oh, you're biased because you coach for the man and you believe in what he does. But like strength wise, like these Buckeyes, like the eye test, is it really something that is in the weight room, or is it when guys necessarily maybe aren't playing up to their strengths or their abilities? Like, is that football acumen and scheme?
I think it's a mixture of both when you're talking about the eye test. And let's be honest, I don't think no one in position that has significant impact on this team's success is lacking the eye test of football IQ, ability, and strength and size. So I think that dilemma is out of that question is completely thrown out the window for me. One thing we got to realize as fans, as supporters, as alumni, and things like that, we find ourselves saying some very critical things out of emotion about the teams that we're so passionate about. Do you? And I find myself asking the same question. I can promise you, no team has ever walked into the shoe or walked in on the field and say, "I can't wait to lose today." So if you don't think Oregon, Nebraska, Penn State, Illinois, Indiana is going to want the exact same thing you want out of each and every game, then you're out of your mind, right? So when you say, "Oh man, they just wasn't, they weak, or they wasn't big enough, or they wasn't strong enough, they didn't execute," well, guess what? That other player on the other side of the field is a scholarship player as well. That coach is getting paid extremely well as well. He's put together a great coaching staff and a strength staff as well. Sometimes it's more than just the X and O's that's going to affect the outcome of the game. And I think, as fans and as supporters, we forget that sometimes. So, but the question of, do this team even pass the eye test, and are they just a team on paper? It's completely BS when they talk about the overall results of wins and losses.
One of the questions that was brought up, Cardale, and I answered it. And I talked to somebody about it, where with our team, the group of guys that I played with, and so this is why I'm kind of curious with you. And some people talk about leadership, like there's not enough fire maybe out there, and that comes back to maybe the seniors, the leaders on that squad, and they had a lot of guys come back this year. And it's a different generation of guys, and people will always lament this, and old guys will always yell, and and a bunch of your teammates were down there on the sideline, and the fire. Where does the fire come from? And I know you say like you show up there, you're trying to win, but like, is it important to have a guy or two out there like that emotional leader? If that was the case, like who was that? On either side of the ball, or whoever it may have been when you were there.
Yeah, I think that's extremely important. I think it's important to have certain guys on your roster where they're going to help you win 1 or 2 games. They're going to help you install that culture that you want. Guys that will cut their arm off the rundown just on kickoff. And I know Coach Myers has said a lot, he used to recruit 1 or 2 players a year just to help us beat the team up north. Because they know how much it meant to those guys. And I don't know the recruiting tactics that the staff is using to get certain guys. That's neither here or there, but yeah, you need those type of guys that's going to be that vocal, emotional leader that that this guy is leaving all out on the field. And not saying none of these guys aren't, but for my group of guys, it was Jacoby Bourne at center on the offensive side of the ball, and really all those guys up front. We knew these guys was willing to go through hell for all of us. And then on the flip side, especially a national championship run, it was a guy like Curtis Grant, who was semi-recruited past and kind of was sharing splitting time with a young Raekwon McMillan at the time, where he could have easily just shut it down and feel like, this young guy was taking his spot. But he took that guy under his wing. He became our emotional leader out. And with that, his play actually improved tremendously. So you need some of those guys in that program. From the outside looking in, we can always say, oh, we don't see it, but we don't know that for sure if they have those guys in that locker room. And then you also need some of those guys that may cost you a little bit, that may get that 15-yard penalty in the first half.
Shankability. Yeah.
Yeah, you need some of those guys as well that, that he go play for 75 plays, but that 2 of those plays, man, he may forget where he at. But those 2 plays go set the tone. Those 2 plays are going to install some fear in some guys. You need those type of guys as well. And I think this team has a good mixture of all of that. We just want as fans to consistently see it at a high level.
Absolutely. Well, Cardale, we've taken way too much of your time. Thank you for sharing that with us, sharing it with the folks out here. Excited to get out there. Penn State at noon. That's going to be a big one. It's going to be critical. You've been there and had a lot of success. So thank you so much. And listen, man, have fun this weekend on the desk at CBS.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me as always.
There he is, Cardale Jones, one of the best. 12 gauge. Give him a follow on X, follow him on Instagram. Watch him on CBS. All right, coming up next, Schlegs, we've got our headlines. And boy, there are plenty of headlines to get to this week. Coming up next on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
Well, how do they know I'm doing this? Did somebody leak this out?
It's social media.
Oh.
That's the way social media works now.
I thought maybe you were just running that yap.
Welcome to Big Play, a sports media team that started back in 2014, and now we're not in a garage. Look at us, incorporating some of Cleveland's favorite sports personalities, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland. Coming to you live from the shores of Lake Erie and Burke Lakefront Airport, join Team Big Play for all the best sports talk in Ohio. Check us out on social media at Big Play, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, now it's time for our headlines, brought to you by our friends over at Affinity Whole Health. They offer personalized treatment plans to help you feel better, whether you're struggling with weight loss, low energy, muscle loss, poor sleep, whatever you need, they can help you get it done. Check the boxes. They will get you feeling the way you want to feel, the way you're wanting to live. Maybe you just don't have energy to get out there with your kids, run around, do the things you need to do in life. They can help you with all those health goals. They've got great testosterone plans, HRT plans. They've got semaglutide for weight loss. They'll develop a custom plan to fit your needs of what you're trying to do. They've got Ohio covered in Cleveland and Columbus. They're also in Indy and up in Chicago. Set up your free consultation. Don't wait till the new year. Get rolling, hit the ground running by going to affinitywholehealth.com. That's affinitywholehealth.com. All right. I'm going to a headline, Schlegel, and there's really one place I want to live on these right here. And we talked to Cardale. That's why I wanted to ask him kind of about that emotional leader, that bell cow. Defense, I think it's got to be kind of a box guy. Like Caleb Downs has kind of developed into a very big leader on that defense. So is Cody Simon has been there too. But I think even with Lathan being out, you've seen Caleb step up a little bit more. And we're going to get back in and answer your questions and tailgate talk next. But I want to throw this up here, and we'll just spin through both of these here, Pat, as we go through them. But Will Howard, for those of you who don't know, Will is from Pennsylvania. He went to Kansas State, but he's not from out there. He's got a 484 area code. The guy is a PA guy and stoked about a chance to be playing in Beaver Stadium. This is where he grew up going. If we toss the other one up there, it's probably even more indicative, Schlegs, and is probably a little bit like you. I mean, you didn't obviously grow up in Iowa. You had family there. You spent your time in Texas. Cannot wait. It's going to be homecoming for me. Grew up a Penn State fan. Wanted to go there my whole life. They didn't think I was good enough. Well, I guess next week we'll see if I was. And he's a passionate guy. He's a fiery guy. I think they're going to have to use him in the run game more next week. They're going to have to lean in on that, get him rolling. But it wouldn't surprise me, Schlegs, if Will Howard this week is that guy that is up on everybody, getting this whole offensive line going, getting those guys ready to roll, and to make sure this offense is focused with a singular mission.
I think, Bob, we were talking about this, and you're right. This was me when we played Iowa. This was me when we played Texas. And Mac Brown was there. And I remember, grabbing him at the end, just saying, "Hey, good game, coach." He's like, "Hey, should have recruited you." I'm like, all right, you probably didn't see the San Diego State film that Bobby Carpenter saw. You would not have definitely got me. But I'll put it this way. I think Will has been an emotional leader from the jump. You can just see in his play, he doesn't get rattled. He goes, makes the necessary first downs. He's not afraid of contact. Really smart guy. And again, transfer guy, came in first year, works, shows the guys what he's about, just automatically got all in, like scarlet and gray all the way. And this is going to be a huge week for him. And it's just a little bit more preparation. This goes into some questions that we've had, Bob, like, how do you do this, right? So we run so many of these little quick screens that people are actually rounding the ball because that's what we do. And then you watch that Indiana game, like, where are some of the RPOs, the quarterback runs in that? Like, if the running game just lining up, like, I don't remember even in this last game are like old school power from the guard and the tight end pulling backside. Like, if we saw any of those in this last one. So if the run game's not working prototypically like the way that you wanted it, you're going to have to get creative. And part of that's going to become from the RPO to make those linebackers have to do two things at once. Is he passing? Is he running? Because here's the deal. When you stop the run, guess what? They can play two deep safeties that help stop the deep balls. Because we were like, well, where are the deep shots in the second half? Where if they're bracketing a guy that's running down the field, there's not going to be any deep shots. Like, you got to be able to run the football to set that up to where I have one high safety so I can actually deliver the football where it needs to go.
And keep that in mind. Like, Nebraska had a really good run from, and they were top 25. Indiana, I think, is the outlier of their defensive performance this year. So they're better. And part of it is, like, listen, you've got to have some of the courage to be able to do that. Can you protect up front to give your guys time to get downfield? Do you have to do some max protection? Because I think, Schlegs, there was plays to be had down the field. They just didn't explore. When you get in a tight game, do you just play to kind of be conservative, or are you out there really playing to win in an aggressive manner? And that's what you got to balance. Because I think it was a lot of split safety, double. I mean, there was opportunities there to be had. You only threw it 16 times, and you only completed 13 of them. There's the one pick. I think Will wishes he had back, but it's really hard when you only have the ball for 25 minutes and run 50 some odd plays. I mean, they did 40 something. Like they didn't. Yeah, it was in the 40s. You don't have a lot of opportunities to get in that rhythm and get it going. And to me, that turning point, it is 14-3 before half. You're driving down the field. You got a chance to hit a 42-yard field goal to go up 14 points. You missed the 42-yard field goal. You got to make that. Nebraska goes down. They kick a field goal. Instead of being 17-3 and up 2 touchdowns going into half, feeling much better about the situation, you're up 14-6, which is an 8-point. It's a 1-possession game at that point. And I think that changes the feel of it going into the second half. There's these delineating points that happen during the course of a game where you can separate from Oregon. They're like close. It was like getting right there. And I went back and I looked at that Nebraska game. Like I had that feeling. And then like right there before half, like you felt like stuff was starting to go the right way. And then we've been so good in the second half all year. I thought, okay, that'll be fine. And you don't get that field goal. Then all of a sudden they go down and score. And so Nebraska can do what they want to do. They can stay with the run. They don't have to be maybe as aggressive. They can kind of just lean on you and just slowly chop wood. So there was that element too, where when you have a chance to get going, you got to go. And then it's only exacerbated in the second half when you go, 1 for 10 on third down throughout the entirety of the game. And you have a number of 3-and-outs, more than I ever remember them having, probably in the rest of the games combined. I mean, they're always going to get at least 1 first down. So not a great situation by any stretch, but that's all for that. We got tailgate talk coming up next. Listen, folks, fire away your questions. Make sure you give us a follow at Bobby Carp Show on YouTube, on Twitter. Make sure you get stuff into us, comments, questions, whatever it is. Follow, like, subscribe, and we can answer your stuff because we're gonna be firing right out of here. I'll pull some tomorrow out of the chat and out of the comments section on YouTube. So, folks, we appreciate it. We want to answer your questions, no matter how aggressive some of them may be, and even the comments. We will comment on your comments. That's coming up next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the
Building a home for the people who are worth it. Stepping out, throwing in a line, and dropping the tailgate for a picnic. And finding far-off campsites with the people you're closest to. Upgrade your truck, Jeep, or Bronco with over 1 million parts and accessories. And bring your truck to life. Real Truck.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and now we get our tailgate talk, which we absolutely love. It's our favorite. It's brought to you by our friends at Real Truck. We answer your questions. #1 truck accessory brand in the United States. Top selling upgrades for the ultimate tailgate party. And right now, limited time, you go to realtruck.com. You buy anything in there for your truck, your Jeep, your Bronco, whatever. Soup it up. All you've got to do then, if you spend $100, you put in promo code Bobby. They're going to get you a free hat. That's going to come with a little bit of something there for the holiday, Schlegs. They do a great job. You and I have both utilized their services many times. Bring your truck to life at realtruck.com. $100, promo code Bobby. Say, get yourself a free hat. All right, we're going to start at the bottom and keep these firing away, folks. And there's a lot of unhappy people out here. There's a lot of uneasy people out here.
It's okay.
We'll be honest. Try to answer your questions the best we can. We're going to start with Ryan Beatty down here at the bottom of the chat. As we'll throw this in here, and so you can toss this up, Pat, about Justin Fry. It's like, this is not great. How does Justin Fry still have a job? Does he have dirt on day? Ridiculous how bad the O-line has played for 3 years. Now, I will say this. The offensive line hasn't been that bad for 3 years. There's been some issues in the run game from time to time. He's put a number of guys in the NFL that have played really well, including Dwan Jones and Paris Johnson, that he helped to develop here. So there have been some issues. This year, there was a depth issue coming in, and people are like, well, get someone out of the portal. Well, there's just not guys to be able to grab in there. Josh Simmons was playing well. You're going to be on your third tackle here moving forward. And so that's not a coaching thing. Like, that's a depth issue. There are things schematically they can do better, but I'll tell you this, like the offensive line has played a lot better this year. They struggled running the ball against Oregon, and there was an element to that where I think the fans were involved, and they've got to play better. But bringing in Chip Kelly, who worked with Justin Fry at UCLA, and those guys have a great relationship, and so they understand what they need to do. But now you're shuffling. You're going to really see, like, if this offensive line plays good, then he has to get all the credit in the world for that, because they've had injuries before. Like, you've had Donovan Jackson was missing a lot of time earlier. You had Austin Sutherland filling in, and he did a good job. So, like, it's not as dire as you think. This last week, though, was just not good at all in the run game.
I think what people are alluding to is some of the misses in recruiting over the years to build some of that depth going into where we currently are in the situation. And to your point, Bob, everyone was talking about the offensive line going into this season. And even against Oregon, I think we had 140 yards running the football. I think Oregon had 151 yards. And again, if JT or whomever, like, I don't even know what they called on that, right? Like, it looked like JT was supposed to be responsible for the quarterback. I may be mistaken. I don't know. I'm not in the film room. If it was like, hey, if you see this, go crack it, we'll have somebody fit behind you and make that play instead of get the memo. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but that was 27 yards unabated to the end zone, right? So again, defensively being able to stop the run, as far as the stat line, helps you win the rushing battle. When you run for 141 yards against a really good Oregon defense, I feel that should be, with our defense, good enough. So now, to your point, Austin comes in and plays some guard when Donnie's not there. We've seen guys, I thought this year, especially protecting the quarterback, it's gotten better. But now, this is why they pay you. Okay, you're down 2 tackles on the left side. What are you going to do? Who do you trust? How do you coach them up in 1 week to go play a top 5 defense in Penn State? We're going to see what happens. But some of that also is, what are we going to do from a scheme-wise? Are we going to do an RPO? Are we going to do more quarterback in the run game? Like, there's going to have to be some other things that we really didn't start the year at as, like, this is what we're going to do. And again, that might totally it might totally go to a different road, Bob.
It might. We'll get to one more here. We got some time.
I'm sorry.
Firing away. It's okay. We're going to get to a lot through them this week, because we'll do more than one segment. We'll make them longer to make sure we get them in, because I want to answer everybody's stuff here.
These are great questions.
This is from RMG1. It seems the coaching staff struggles to make in-game adjustments. Why is this? This last week, it looked rough because they could never get the running game going. However, during the season, there's been times they've started slow and they've made some really good adjustments. I think Ryan historically does a very good job of making adjustments and changing things up in game. This last game, though, that did not happen because they were never able to really get the running game going, Schlegs.
Yeah. And I'm going to keep this one really short. I think we've always said that they've been able to make really good halftime adjustments. And then when you have one, it's kind of like, well, where are the halftime adjustments?
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, again, that they're here for a reason. Like, let's make these adjustments. I thought that Nebraska made some good halftime adjustments going against our offense in the second half.
Absolutely. They did some good stuff in game, but there wasn't enough. And I think the adjustment maybe is you max protect, throw some deep shots and try to stretch them a little bit. They had Mecca. You couldn't get the run game going normally. Why don't pull out some of the stuff from Oregon with Mech that they were using? Maybe run a reverse to JJ, like you watched that earlier. There was other things, and I think that's why people were frustrated. I get it, because you feel like that's all in the bag. Like, this is a game you need to win, and you're in jeopardy of losing it. So get it figured out. Great questions, folks. Keep them coming. Fire them in the chat. Fire them over here at X, at YouTube, whatever it is. We appreciate it. We'll get them as many answered as we possibly can the rest of this week. All right, coming up next, we're going to wrap up the show with Schleg's parting thoughts.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the
I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like. I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, final segment of the show here as we wrap it up today. Schlegel, we got to do getting to do a podcast with our guy, Coach Jim Tressel. After that, extremely excited. So you got to get your fanny over here and be able to take care of that. Parting thoughts. You got about 30 seconds here before we wrap it up.
You know what? Parting thoughts are this. I can't wait to watch the adjustments. Like I'm just like you guys, right? Like I want to see it. What I want to see is a complete game from Ohio State on the road in Unso Happy Valley. I think if we can do that, that will answer a lot of people's questions and get everybody settled back down a little bit. But just like you, Bob and I, like we're very transparent. We want to see it. This is why they get paid a lot of money. Let's see what happens this week, but keep firing your questions away because they're actually really good questions.
Absolutely. Well, we'll be back live at 12:30 tomorrow. You can catch us, I believe, on Bally's FanDuel TV, whatever it's called now as well. Check us out on YouTube. We appreciate it, and we will see you tomorrow. That's it for this edition of the show. Hopefully Tuesday will be a little bit better on the Bobby Carpenter Show.